Hello and welcome to the history lessons in Edupedia World. Today I want to work on just one example of the various things that we've been seeing till now. We've had a really brief overview of life of the hunter-gatherers, life before agriculture, and we haven't really gone into any example. So today we're going to take the paintings, the cave paintings from the lesson on art, and we're going to talk about Lascaux. It's one of the most famous cave paintings in France. This is for you to get a more deeper understanding and a better idea of what you can find, what has been found, and now you already have the background and you have the general idea. So now we're going to go deep into specifics. Just to situate you a bit, Lascaux is famous for its Paleolithic cave paintings. It's found in the Dordogne region of southwestern France. You can see here in red, and it's famous because of its exceptional quality, size and antiquity. It's estimated that it's 20,000 years old, and basically it's large animals that were once native to this region. We also know that it was discovered really early in September 1940 by 4 boys and a dog. We'll talk about this in a moment. And it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it's really important. The story behind its discovery. Remember that I mentioned in the last lesson about art that these discoveries were normally made by chance because these places are really hidden. The people chose to paint these things in hidden places. So let's talk about the history of finding. This little story is really interesting. Well, there was these 4 boys that went out with a dog and just exploring out in the woods. And the dog actually found a deep hole in the ground that had been covered. So, as boys do, young kids decided to explore it, and they enlarged the opening and went down 15 meters into a dark chamber. That is daunting. That's a great adventure. And when they were inside, they used an oil lantern and they were breathtaken by what they saw. What they saw, as described in their own words, was a cavalcade of animals larger than life, painted on the walls and the ceiling of the cave. Each animal seemed to be moving. You remember how they were meant to be seen? These pictures were meant to be seen in flickering lights that gives it this mysterious and moving illusion. And that's how these teenagers saw them. The ceiling was also pure white, made a real contrast, and all the paintings were red, blacks, browns. The boys at this first time were in the Hall of the Bulls. We'll see what that is later on. And although they were afraid they would have problems going back up, they actually found it quite easy to climb as the hole was narrow and they could prop up with the limbs. So just with all the thrill, these young boys, really excited, decided to keep this a secret at the start and then explore further the next day. So the next day, they bought ropes, oil lamps, and were real prepared to go to the next levels of this place. From what they found more paintings. They went into the well that we'll talk about later, and they just could not keep it hidden anymore, obviously, and they made a plan. I really found funny this first plan. They decided that they could take 5 friends each, and they were going to charge to let them in the place. But this never works, and the word spread throughout the village. Everyone wanted to see the paintings then, and they got really overwhelmed by the number of visitors and people just going there. So the boys went to their schoolmaster and asked him to go and see this and show it to them. But you have to imagine a schoolmaster being told by a group of kids that they want him to go down a hole. It took a lot of convincing to make note that this was not a prank. If you're a teacher or you've been around children, or you were a kid before, you know how difficult it must have been for this school teacher to actually go down there. But once he did, he was sure about this great discovery. He was sure that these were prehistoric paintings. So what he did was give these children 2 rules. First one was, don't let anyone touch the paintings, and more importantly, guard the cave from possible vandals. So actually the boys did take care of the cave until it was confirmed authentic by the Historic Society, and then taken over to study. As the cave was located on private property by the Count of La Rochefoucauld, and that's the family who began making it commercial. You actually have to pay quite a lot to go inside. 8 years after the first discovery, we see that the visitors just skyrocketed. The tours will bring as many as 1,000 people a day through Lascaux. So, as we'll see at the end, just remember this, so many people going in, this actually had great impact in the caves physically. But we'll go to that later on. Let's go and see what was in the cave. Well, this is a reproduction of the cave. It's amazing, and it has different levels and different places that have been distributed. We have the Great Hall of the Bulls, we have a lateral passage, we have the shaft of the dead man, the chamber of engravings, the painted gallery, chamber of felines, and all are around 2,000 figures, mostly animals. There's one human figure and lots of abstract signs. These areas are distributed and named from the paintings. So the Hall of the Great Bull, as you'll see, it's because there's a big bull, for instance. Now we'll go into seeing different parts, different paintings, to analyze a bit and discover the specificities of this cave. First, we go to a painting of the Hall of the Bulls. What can you say? Because I'd like to pay attention that all the animals, many are painted over the others, in different styles too. So for instance, here we have red and black horses and a big white dotted bull. And the sizes are really different. You don't know if they were distant or they were just painting over them constantly. And many of them we'll see that are painted inside other animals. Here is one of the most curious ones. This is a unicorn. It's called a unicorn, and well, the theory is that was probably a human dressed in a mask. It meant to be a human dressed in animal skin. It's not believed that they might have had mythical animals like that they believe they could find easily outside. Normally when you find this kind of painting, it's believed that it was the shaman, like the painting we saw from the Trois Frères cave, where the shaman had different parts of different animals. And here, yes, we finally see the great bull. And let's see if I can go back. Yeah, there's a great black bull, but try and see the red cow painted it inside. Can you see it? One of the things I really enjoyed about Lascaux is this you see one picture, but within the picture you can find so many other bits and pieces. And if you, just as a curiosity, look, the bull is really well painted. They had a good knowledge of the anatomy. It's not just whatever or just sketchy. It is well proportionate and well painted. As we've said, and we're seeing there's lots of horses. These are called the Chinese horses because of the style of painting. And they used various colors, and some seem pregnant, although it's not known why. And they play with the colors of the natural colors of the cave. Here you see that using all this part of the cave, they have these swimming deers. You can see only the heads are coming out and they look like they're swimming. Here is the only human picture we have in Lascaux, and it's this man with a bird-like face dying because of a bison. It's called the Dead Man. It's in the area of the well. And curiously, this is the only picture of depicting a human. We don't know if it was maybe something that happened or something that they were like casting a spell so it would happen. And here we have quite a curious one. This is 8 feet, and the artists for these bisons, they use the concavity of the wall because it creates an illusion, especially with these flickering lights, that the two bisons are galloping in full speed towards the viewer. It actually seemed like they're coming to you. This has to be seen in the place, obviously, but just the shape of the wall, that's what they used. They weren't just doing silly paintings. They were using the canvas of the wall and the cave to make these pictures come alive. And here is the great black cow. Just mentioning the thing before, this is the canvas for them. Remember that we said that the boys saw that the ceiling was all white? Just imagine finding this cave. It was perfect for this. It was perfect to be painted, because it's all white and bright and adapted for this. It just seemed perfect. Before going more deep into the cow, please have a look. How many animals can you find here? How many parts of animals can you find? I will say that there's various horses hidden, and there's obviously the big black cow. It's superimposed on a great frieze of horses. We see one that's near the head of the cow, and now we'll have a look at some. These are at the back of the cow. It was superimposed, but curiously these ones were also engraved. They were engraved and painted. They look like horses, or maybe sometimes it's thought about wild donkeys. So we just, again, you see all these little animals constantly being painted one on top of the other, probably creating new rituals, and every time they went back in, they probably asked for more hunting, or they were taking the powers of these great animals. See the big cow. This was an amazing animal for them, apparently, because they created it so big, so large, and on top of all those horses. At the end of the day, we can only hypothesize on what these paintings meant for them. And you can have your theories. Please have a look at this and think, what could they want to achieve with all this? I like it as a curious exercise. And as I was saying at the start, remember, so many visitors going into the cave had its consequence. These places are secluded, and once they are open to the public, they can have serious problems. In this case, the oxygen and carbon dioxide that humans excrete when they breathe, just the sheer concentration started changing the chemistry and the environment in the cave. So from 1940, where it was discovered, 1948, where you already had like 2,000 people coming in 1955, so early, there were the first signs of deterioration. And by the 60s, they had terrible issues. There was algae on the cave walls, they called it the green sickness. Calcite began to form over the paintings. They were losing them. And the cave ended up closing to the public. Obviously, the air conditioning machines and everything that had been built for the visitors was turned off, and there was scientists going in to try and find a solution. We have to say, and as we can see from in the 60s still, they started spreading antibiotics, and there was a treatment that was successful for the green sickness, but the fungi have reappeared constantly. They started appearing in the engine rooms, and they are affecting the paintings. Still, to this day, it hasn't been completely eliminated. Why is this happening and no one is really funding too much of this? Is because there was if you go to Lascaux, I was lucky enough to go, and you can only go into a reproduction. It's really well done. It's a specifically constructed place where it's museum type. You go into, it's a cave nearby that didn't have any paintings, and they used it to create a reproduction exactly like Lascaux, like the paintings, so tourists can go and see. I have to say it's quite pricey. It's still worth. You always go with a guide. You can't go without. But because of this great tourist attraction, the original cave is still in danger. So as you can see, there's actually a website called Save Lascaux that you can visit. There's not many updates to 2016. That's when this video is being made. The government isn't giving much information, and the associations either. I like to mention this because every time historians, archaeologists study and dig sites, there is repercussions. There are consequences. Some parts are lost, and for example, bits and pieces will be lost. You are modifying it. There is consequences to finding and knowing more about our past. And Lascaux is sadly, it's an example of this. The great impact of humans going to see these places that weren't prepared for this. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little example, and see you in the next lesson.